All right, Algebra 2, Chapter 4 review. So number 1, first off, this form here is vertex form. Remember, inside lies. So the vertex is 5, 3. The 3 does not change, and we see -5, but it's really +5. So right off the bat, we know that 5, 3 is going to be our vertex. We can put that on if we want. Okay. We know this is a negative, so it's a sad parabola, so it is going down. If it's going down, that means it's going to have a maximum. The axis of symmetry, remember, is always an x equals vertical line that goes to the x coordinate, so that's 5. We also know, since it's going down, that the range is going to be going towards negative infinity. And this is without even putting in the calculator and seeing it. These are the things we know. It's going towards negative infinity. And this number here is always going to be part of that range, because that's where it's topping out. So this is as high as this is going to go. Like the ceiling is going to bounce off of. Domain on all these doesn't change. They're going to go left and right forever. And we've answered everything without even seeing it. Now we can pull up our calculator. If it'll work. Go to y equals, clear it out, put in negative, remember to use the gray negative key, 3, parentheses, x minus 5, x is up here, minus 5, parentheses, squared, plus 3. We go to our table, second graph. Now, those numbers are way too huge. We're not going to graph those. And we know it's over here in the positive side, so we want to go over or down, whichever way you want to think about it. So there's 5, 3. There's our vertex. We're trying to find some points we can put, like 3, -9. So 3, -9 is right here. Okay? And 7, -9. We also have 4, 0, and 6, 0. And those are 5 points, which we want to have. And there's our graph right there with all the information filled out. Number 2, this one is in intercept form. These are our x-intercepts, our roots, our solutions. And remember, inside lies. So this is really x minus -1. So we have a root here at -1. And we have a root at 3. Okay. Now, it is a positive happy parabola, so it's going up. If it's going up, that means it has a minimum bouncing off the floor. The x-intercepts are -1, 0, and 3, 0. Now, what's the vertex? Well, the vertex is halfway in between that. So if you wanted to do 3 plus -1 divided by 2, that's 2 divided by 2, which is 1. So the vertex is going to be 1, comma, something. And the axis of symmetry is going to be x equals 1, going through that x coordinate. Domain doesn't change on any of these. The range, we know, is going to hit 1, and we know it's going towards positive infinity. I need to check and make sure I had a bracket on this one. I did not. Hopefully some of you caught that. We always include the number, so this should be a bracket. Okay, now we get our calculator, go to y equals, clear it out. Parentheses, x plus 1, that's a 2. Close, open, x minus 3. Now we hit graph. That looks about right. Go to our table. Get some points that we can use. That's about right. So negative 2, 5. Negative 1, 0, which we already had. 0, negative 3. 1, negative 4, which we know is going to be our vertex. Oh, what am I doing here? Just not thinking. 1 is in the range. It's that negative 4 that we just found out. Hopefully some of you caught that also. You can probably see where it's going to be here at 2, negative 3, but we can confirm on the calculator. 2, negative 3. And 4, 5. So remember, it's just a mirror image here. So there's our vertex right down there. There's our parabola going towards positive infinity. Hopefully some of you caught my error there. That was a silly mistake. And again, remember, make sure you're putting 5 points on here. Number 3, this is standard form. What we do know from this is the y-intercept at 0, 5. And that's all we know right now off the bat. Now, we can find out the x-coordinate by doing the opposite of b over 2a. A is negative 1. B is negative 6. And that's really all we need. We don't need c, but let's put it anyway for practice. So x-coordinate is the opposite of b. B is negative 6. That's 6 over 2 times negative 1. That's 6 over negative 2, which means negative 3. So the vertex is at negative 3, comma something. Not sure what it is. We do know it is going down, which means it has a maximum. Okay. Angles, again, I go with angle. The axis of symmetry is going to be x equals negative 3. Domain is not changing on any of these. It's going towards negative infinity, but we need that vertex to find out this number here. Well, we go to our calculator, clear it out, and let's put this in. Negative x squared minus 6x plus 5. And we hit graph. Oh no, our vertex is off the chart. That's okay. We know the x-coordinate of it is negative 3. So we have negative 3, comma 14. We can't graph that, but we do know that this is 14. We also know this number goes here. Okay, so what can we graph? Well, we can graph negative 5, 10, and negative 1, 10. We can graph 0, 5, and negative 6, 5. Nope. Which we already had 0, 5. And we can do negative 7, negative 2. And 1, negative 2. And just kind of put it somewhere up there, like so. And we have our 5 points. We also know we had a couple at 13, something like that. And here's our vertex at negative 3, negative 4, positive 14. All right. Gerald is going to launch a toy rocket off the top of a building that's 50 feet in the air. And it's going to have an initial velocity of 48 feet per second. Feet per second is velocity, v, that goes there, and the initial height, h, goes there. So the first thing we have to do is just do this. Height as a product of time is negative 16 t squared plus 48 t plus 50. That's all the first step is. Just write that out. Now, what's the height after 3 seconds? Well, we go to our calculator and we put that equation in. So negative 16, we use x squared Hopefully you saw that the 16 did not capture the 1. So I want to put that in there. You can always hit, see how above delete is blue insert, INS. If I just hit second that, I can stick a 1 in there instead of having to erase everything. Plus 48x plus 50. Then I go and graph it. That doesn't really help much. Go to my table. I don't need all those numbers. Okay. And in fact, instead of scrolling down, here's a little trick. You can go to your second window and tell it to start at 0. Especially if you need to ever look for bigger numbers, which will come into a later problem. So at 3 seconds, x is 3, it's 50. How long until it reaches its maximum height? Well, that's x equals the opposite of b over 2a. A is negative 16, B is 48, and C is 50. So opposite of B is negative 48 over 2 times negative 16. That's negative 48 divided by negative 32. If you type that in your calculator, you will get 1.5 seconds. Now here's the problem. My calculator does not have 0.5 seconds. And you can see 1 second's 82 and 2 seconds 82. So it's somewhere, but not 82. It's got to be probably higher than 82, but we don't know what it is. Well, guess what? Again, if we hit second window, we can also tell it, instead of counting by 1s, to count by 0.5. Now when I go to my table, there's 1.5, 86 feet. How long until it hits the ground? Well, approximately, you can look at this and see at 3 seconds it's back at 50, and then 22, and there you go. Somewhere between 3.5 and 4 seconds. But to find out the exact number, we're going to use the quadratic formula. X equals the opposite of b, which we said was 48, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. So that is negative 48 plus or minus the square root of, if I crunch all those numbers, remember, negative times negative is going to be positive. So 4 times 16 times 50 plus 48 squared is 5504. Now we're not going to simplify this fraction because we want actual numbers. So we're going to round it. Negative 48 plus or minus the square root of 5504 rounds to 74.2. Just the tenths place is fine, over negative 32. Now, we're going to do 2 problems here. Negative 48 plus 74.2 over negative 32, and negative 48 minus 74.2 over negative 32. If you're out of room, you can go off to the side or whatever. This one ends up being negative 8.2 seconds. If they look at the graph, okay, we can't go back in time, so that won't help us. And this one ends up being 3.8 seconds. And that's the one we want. Because negative 8.2 doesn't make sense. We don't want to go back in time. But if we look at this, there's 1, 2, 3, almost a 4. Now, I didn't read my own writing. Obviously, that other distance is not over here at negative 8.2. Well, it's actually at negative 0.82. I didn't read my writing well. It was negative 0.8 or 0.82. Okay. Now we just go and put some points on the graph from our calculator. So we know it started at 50. That's about halfway between 40 and 60. We're estimating here. And we're just going to put a few points on here. So at 1 second, we know in 2 seconds it was at 82. So here's 82, just a little bit above there. And 2 seconds, 82. We know at 1.5 is at 86. Again, this is 90, so we're just kind of estimating that. I didn't want it that high, but 3.8 seconds, right about there. We also know at 3 seconds it was back down to 50. And there's our graph. That's it. Right, Tommy works out of his garage selling phones, used phones. Here is the equation. He sells 43 phones. How much will he make? Well, we just need our calculator for that. So we go in here, hit y equals, clear it out, negative x squared plus 100x. Go slow, make sure you get everything, minus 750. Graphing this will not help us at all, so we want to go to the table. Well, we want 43 phones. I don't feel like scrolling all the way down through all this. So I'm going to go back to second window. I'm going to start this at 43. I'm also going to change this back to 1. And there we have it, $1,701. $1,701. What's the maximum profit? Well, that again is opposite of B over 2A. So that's opposite of 100 over 2 times negative 1. That's negative 100 divided by negative 2, which is 50. So that means 50 phones will give him maximum profit. Go back here and go down to 50. You could do the little trick and just start at 50 or just pop down here a few times. And there we have it, 1750. That is his maximum profit. If you look, it starts going back down after that. And that's because everything matches on the either side of the axis of symmetry, which goes through the vertex. All right, now back to the first half of the unit. So here we're going to distribute the negative 7, negative 14, negative times negative is positive 28i. Distribute the 3, 18 plus 6i. Combine like terms, 18 minus 14 is 4. Combine like terms, 34i. Here, we're going to double distribute. 15 minus 10i, 9i, and careful here, negative 6, and don't forget I squared. Now I squared becomes negative 1, which is just going to make this positive 6. If you want to write it out, you can. You can scratch it out and put plus 6, whatever you need. 15 plus 6 is 21. And then combine the i's. 9i minus 10i is negative 1i. You don't need the 1, but if you want to, you can put it in there. Simplify this completely. 49 is the magic number that goes into it, times 3. And don't forget that negative 1. Remember, the 3 stays inside, not out. Square root of 49 is 7. Negative 1, need the I. Rationalize, multiply by 2 minus 7i over 2 minus 7i. Some of you need to put this in parentheses. Remember to distribute to both. That's still a problem for some. 6 times 2 is 12, and then negative 42i. That's it on the top. On the bottom, remember, you only have to do the first and the last because the middle terms are going to cancel out. 14i minus 14i. So 2 times 2 is 4. Again, careful here. It's going to be minus 49i squared. This should always be minus. But this is negative 1. we're just going to make that plus. So 12 minus 42i. 49 plus 4 is 53. We can't go any further. If we would end up with 52 or 54, we could have divided everything by 2 or maybe some other larger common factor. But 53 is odd, and that's all we can do. And a review of factoring. So here we need to subtract 5x and subtract 38, which is going to give us x squared minus 7x, negative 2 minus 5 is negative 7. 20 minus 38 is negative 18. Now again, if you need to show the work here, you know what you need to do. And here it's a simple guess and check, factoring. I need two numbers that multiply, give me 18 that differ by 7. That's 9 and 2. I want more negatives than positives. Again, you can check your work. Negative 9, positive 2. I want negative 7. That works. But then again, remember, don't stop here. It says solve. Some of you stopped on the graded worksheet. X minus 9 equals 0, and x plus 2 equals 0. X is positive 9, and x is negative 2. Those are your solutions. Square rooting, simply start by getting the square root alone. X minus 2 squared, it's alone, equals negative 18. Now we square root both sides. That cancels that. And remember, as soon as I wrote that square root, I need a plus or minus. Now how does this break down? 9 times 2, and you have the negative 1. Square root of 9 is 3. Negative 1 comes out as an I. And then we have the radical 2. Last thing, add 2. Now remember, this is not 5i. X equals 2 plus or minus 3i root 2. The 2 does not go on the right side at all. It does not join the 3i. It's not plus or minus whatever. It's 2 plus or minus 3i root 2. Completing the square. Start off by moving the 48 by subtraction. Leave this blank. Now we do the binomial squared. Half this number, square it. Whatever you do to one side, you must do to the other. And then we get negative 12. Now, since we have a square root, just like number 11, we square root both sides. X minus 6, because that cancels, equals plus or minus 4 times 3 times negative 1. Square root of 4 is 2. Square root of 3 stays, and negative 1 becomes the I. Now we just add 6. X equals 6 plus or minus 2i radical 3. Last but not least, it's set equal to 0, which means we're ready to start. A is negative 2. Be careful with the negatives. B is negative 7, and C is 13. Remember, I suggest you do this. X equals the opposite of B, plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Then plug in your numbers. This helps you remember this is going to become positive 7. Remember here, that's going to make it positive. So you will not end up with an irrational number or a 0. And then negative 2 here. So that's positive 7. This ends up being 153 underneath. 7 squared is 49. Negative 7 squared is 49. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 13, add it to the 49, and we get negative 4 here. Now 153 breaks down to 9 and 17. Seven plus or minus 3 radical 17 all over negative 4. And since 7 is a prime number, 3 is a prime number, this cannot be simplified. That's my answer. That's the review.